So, good morning, sir. So, we are tasked to tackle about global migration. So, what is migration? So, there are two types of migration. The first one is internal migration. Internal migration refers to a change of residence within national boundaries, such as between states, provinces, cities, or municipalities. So, it is also someone who moves to a different administrative territory. So, basically, refers to people moving from one area to another within one country. So the next type of migration is international migration. International migration refers to change of residence over national boundaries. An international migrant is one who moves to a different country. It is also further classified as legal immigrants, refugees. So later on, we are going to tackle about the five groups of international migration. So basically, international migration is people who cross borders of one country to another. So there are five classifications, or there are five groups of international migration. The first one is the immigrants. So immigrants is those who move permanently to another country. The second one refers to the workers who stay in another country for a fixed period, and they live at least 6 months in year. Third one is the illegal migrants. Illegal migrants are those who move without legal permission. Fourth one is the migrants whose families have petitioned them to have the destination country. The last one is the refugees, also known as asylum seekers. Those who are unable or unwilling to return because a well-founded fear of persecution on account of race, religion, or nationality membership in a particular social group or political opinion.
So first, let us define the GDP or gross domestic product. It is the total monetary or market value of the finished goods and services produced within a country's border in a specific time period. 50% of global migrants have moved from developing countries to developed zones of the world and contribute anywhere from 40 and 80% of their labor force. Their growth has outstripped the population growth in the developed countries. Once settled, they contribute to raising the productivity of their host countries. So as we can see in the table 1, migrant contributions to destination country in dollars as percentage of national GDP or gross domestic product 2015. So the United States had contributed 52 trillion with 11% of GDP. Germany has contributed $550 and 17% percentage of GDP. United Kingdom 390 billion with 14% GDP. Australia had contributed 330 billion with 25% of GDP, and Canada contributed 320 billion with 21%.
I will be discussing the problem of human trafficking. But first, let's define human trafficking. Human trafficking is a trade of humans for the purpose of forced labor, sexual slavery, or commercial sexual exploitation for the traffickers or others. This may encompass providing a spouse in the context of forced marriage or the extraction of organs or tissues, including for surrogacy and ova removal. Human trafficking is also known as trafficking of persons and modern slavery. It is estimated that internationally there are between 20 million and 40 million people in modern slavery today. Assessing the full scope of human trafficking is difficult because there are so many cases of human trafficking that is undetected or unsolved. It is estimated that 0.04% survivors of human trafficking cases are identified, meaning that the vast majority of cases of human trafficking go undetected. Human trafficking earns global profits of roughly $150 billion a year for traffickers, and $99 billion of which comes from commercial sexual exploitation. The United States Federal Bureau of Investigation lists human trafficking as the third largest criminal activity worldwide. In 2012, the International Labour Organization identified 20 million men, women, and children as victims of forced labor, and a appalling 3 out of every 1,000 persons worldwide. 90% of the victims, or 18.7 million, are exploited by private enterprises and entrepreneurs. 22%, or 4.5 million, are sexually abused, and 68%, or 14.2 million, work under compulsion in agricultural, manufacturing, infrastructure, and domestic activities. Human trafficking has been very profitable, earning syndicates, smugglers, and corrupt state officials profits of as high as $150 billion a year in 2014, which I stated a while ago. Governments, the private sector, and civil society groups have worked together to combat human trafficking, yet the results remain uneven because still, like in the present, human trafficking still appears, and a lot of cases is undetected due to the lack of clues. So, human trafficking usually appear in children because they use children for the forced labor and also the sexual thing that they do for the child. So, in 2019, over half, or 51.6% of the criminal human trafficking cases active in the US were sex trafficking cases involving only children. So, I will be attaching the article that I've read below so you can further read the the cases or what is happening in human trafficking in nowadays. So thank you for listening. That's all.
Hello everyone, right now we're going to talk about the benefits and detriments for the sending countries of migration. Sending money south. Remittance. For sender countries, one of the chief benefits of global migration is remittance payments from the departed. Migrants that have secured a job abroad often send parts of their wages to their families still residing in their home country. These large transfers of money from the more prosperous developed world to the poorer developing are often seen as key to the latter's economic development. Remittance are a private flow that is far more significant in size, scale, and impact than state-to-state development aid. They are private flows that put decisions to consume, invest, etc. in the hands of migrants and their families, as said by Professor Andrew Geddes. The escape valve. In the 19th century, the ability of impoverished populations to migrate was also viewed as an escape valve that dissipated social discontent. According to Mr. Wise and Covarrubias, remittance payments are providing a similar function to escape valve. For remittance as a support for social stability. In relation Others are less optimistic about the benefits of remittance payments. The problem with such reliance upon remittance, says Wise and Covarrubias, is that it is in reality a provision of the idea of development that offers no prospects for the future. Poverty is merely being relieved through remittances to the support of governments and international agencies rather than fundamentally addressing poverty through economic development policies. Unlocking funds. Beyond cash transfers for consumer spending, as economically stimulating as they may or may not be, remittance payments also have the potential to unlock much-needed funds for developing countries. These funds could be used to promote more comprehensive development initiatives. The use of remittance payments has been used in some countries as collateral for international borrowing. According to the World Bank, the use of future remittances as collateral, future flow securitization of remittances can lower borrowing costs and lengthen debt maturity. An important element of a future flow securitization structure is the creation of a special purpose vehicle offshore to issue the bond and shield it from sovereign interference. Global migration from the developing to the developed world also opens up other potential tools for economic development. Migrants in destination countries saving their money are likely to use a deposit account, accruing little interest. This presents a financial opportunity for sender countries through offering bonds to diaspora population to raise funds for development. The American Uncle. In 19th century German, there was the cultural and actual individual for some figure of the American uncle. Following the 1848 revolution, many Germans headed across the Atlantic and made their fortunes in the U.S. Now as before, some migrants are able to take advantage of the opportunities offered in destination countries and make it rich. Many such migrants often engage in philanthropy, sending money back to their home countries or towns in the hopes of alleviating poverty for the less fortunate. According to the World Bank, there are two relatively organized forms of diaspora. Philanthropic engagement is through hometown associations or the HTAs and diaspora foundations, as well as the use of private channels. Some governments, the World Bank continues, have attempted to channel collective remittances through HTAs by offering matching funds. These philanthropic endeavors are mostly used in rural areas to provide vital services such as healthcare, electricity, or education. However, the private nature of philanthropy often means that it is difficult to assess whether these investments and the matching grants have gone to the highest priority project or have been diverted from other regions with a great need of assistance from fiscally constrained governments. The brain drain to Europe. One of the primary economic drawbacks of migration for center countries is the experience of brain drain. In the past, migration was primarily the pursuit of the rural poor, dislocated from their traditional economies by modernity, left without many prospects in their home country. However, the developing world is becoming increasingly educated. The result for sender countries of the developing world is the loss of the most educated, often so at the expense of the state, to other countries, leaving the sender country without vital human capital. So according to Professor Gillis, potentially there is a loss known as brain drain if countries invest in skills and training, including of medical professionals, only for these people to then live and work in another country. Although there will be flows back, such as remittances, and there may be the eventual return of migrants to their homes, possessing more skills and experiences. Others are not optimistic. According to Professor Leila Simona Talani, Tunisia is lagging progressively more and more behind in terms of the technological skills necessary to enter new global productive chains. This dramatically reduces the possibility of highly skilled personnel to find appropriate jobs in the country. In conclusion, whether or not migration brings a net economic benefit to the sender countries is hard to determine. Migration offers many benefits to sender countries through the transfer of funds from those abroad through remittance. However, the danger is that this becomes a substitute for economic development, with the sender countries reliant upon cash transfers but without any real economic foundation to build upon. Ideas such as diaspora bonds or using the future flow of remittance payments to secure debt may help cash-strapped sending countries with much-needed funds, which, if used correctly, such as the built infrastructure, could stimulate economic development.
Integration relates on how migrants interact with their new home countries after migrating from one to another. In this case, the migrants under the democratic states or nation will grant them the citizenship and a right to have an education. A migrant could be considered in many different ways. Migrants can contribute significantly to a host nation's gross domestic product, thereby increasing the production. Let's take, for example, the US or Singapore style when it comes to job. We have the so-called the blue collars and the white collars. Technically, this is worldwide. White-collar workers are often found in service industries, while blue-collar can be found in the engineering, mining, and etc. Not all migrants are very successful when it comes to job security. Most of the successful migrants are from China, India, and Western Europe because these countries provide much adequate resources to education, healthcare, and many more, while in the North and Sub-Saharan Africa, it is difficult due to the vastness of desert sands and the lack of fertile lands found in these regions, and also food and water security. Migrants would not be safe from the countries that accepted them, for there are many reasons they may encounter, since they are from different countries of different cultures. There are three intriguing reasons why migrants would encounter hostility, prejudice, and these are: number one, linguistic difficulties, the pronunciation, the accent, and the language. Number two, old country customs from the regulations of policies are maybe a lot different or similar of that. And three, different religions. There are many religions all throughout the world, and the migrants that come from China are folk religions, beliefs, and philosophies that was introduced by their teachers. An example for that is Buddhism, Confucianism, and Taoism. They would also be under attack by xenophobic and anti-immigrant groups, which are the real citizens of a host country. Thus, it would create xenophobia among these citizens and would later push for anti-immigration policy to their host country so as to protect their dominant culture. If tension rises, migrants would likely reinforce by keeping among themselves strategy, which could prevent a total escalation among the migrants and the xenophobic and anti-immigration groups. If you are a first-time migrant, you may develop anxiety. You would feel living in a new and strange place, which is then mitigated by local networks of fellow citizens to keep you from becoming uprooted or dislocated, and serve as a migrant safety net. For example, if the Chinese Consolidated Benevolent Association of California can help and provide support for new Chinese migrants living in the state of California, guiding them in finding a job or by setting up a small businesses such as coffee shops and restaurants, it would still be difficult, and the drawback of these networks is that instead of facilitating integration into the host country, it would exacerbate differences and discrimination, which could lead to physical and violent confrontation among others. But still, there is hope. The governments and private corporations have made such policy changes regarding integration problems from becoming enlarged. Such policy changes include the use of multiple languages in state documents, such as language that are often used in immigration policy. In the United States is the use of Spanish and English languages, since Latin Americans tend to migrate from Central and South America to the US. There are also training programs complemented with counseling have also helped migrant integration, such as in Hamburg, Germany.